of the podcast. Today, our topic is the secret weapon.
Yes, we're going to talk about the very important topic of student communication because we have come to understand after years of working with kids and teachers that how we talk to kids is so important.
Very, very important. And we've all been there. Even if this is your first year, you probably already have experienced working with a student that makes you want to pull your hair out.
Right.
And maybe say some things that you shouldn't.
Yes. And, I read an article one time, Jessica, that said that teachers make something like, it was over 1,000 decisions a day.
Yes.
And so that's why it's so important that we go to work rested, because we have to make so many decisions on the fly. And so sometimes we're very reactive and reflexive. When a kid says something inappropriate, a lot of times something can just come out.
Yes.
Have you ever been there?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so one example is if a student was to say to you, "I don't like you,"
Well, I don't like you either.
Right. Something reflexive like that. Well, I don't care. Or this, that, the other. There's something that would be not the best choice. Right. And so we don't want to be perceived as mean. And, I know sometimes kids call teachers mean who just have high expectations, but other times when they describe teachers as mean, it is
because they are.
There's something to it.
Yeah. And I think we talked about in the last episode about one of the things we said was not taking things personally. And I think that really factors in when dealing with students that might push your buttons. So today we're going to talk about some strategies that you can use when those students really do push your buttons or make you want to say or do things that would not be the best choice.
Yeah, or when they say something that's outrageous or something that gets under your skin, like when they say something that's provoking or potentially provoking. We're going to give you a better way to handle it. And I just would like to give a shout out to my good friend Donna Sawyer.
Yes.
She is just amazing. She used to teach for Harnett County Schools, and then she was at Central Office, and then she went to DPI. She's put together a lot of good stuff for us, and this is a strategy that she came across. And so, yay, Donna.
Yes.
We're going to give credit where credit is due, but are we going to do a share drive?
We're going to share it in some way. I know that we'll definitely attach the link to the show notes, and then we're going to work on coming up with a way to share resources with you guys that would be easily accessible. But if you're dying to get to it, she does have 10 keys that we have listed as separate PDs on our website. And you can get to those through the staff intranet. You just go to the staff intranet, then you go to curriculum and instruction, and then click on professional growth. And if you scroll all the way to the bottom, you'll see the
10 keys. I think it's 10 keys to improving student attitudes or something like that.
Yeah.
It's good stuff. It's a bunch of child psychology stuff is what it is. And so, for those of us that have raised kids and we've done a great job, some of this might come more naturally. I did not have kids of my own before I went into the classroom. So a lot of times we just don't know. But let's start talking about this strategy. And again, this strategy is appropriate for when kids are flipping out, when they're highly emotional, when they say something rebellious. The example that Donna used to always use in her training, Jessica, was when, let's say that you're a writing teacher and you have on the board, choose topics for speeches as your task of the day or your bell ringer. And this kid walks in and goes, "Oh man, I hate speeches." Right? And then Donna gives it's a reflexive, inappropriate thing to say would be what?
Well, I hate you.
For sure.
Or
right.
I hate that you're here, or sit down and shut up.
Right.
Or you're going to do it anyway.
Right. Yeah. So there's so many things that we can say that might be natural and I don't want to say impulsive, but impulsive, reflexive. You talk all the time, you're going to love it. Now sit down.
Right.
So those kinds of things that we hear teachers say and that I've been guilty of saying from time to time, just to, or dismiss them. She said that you want to be sure not to be dismissive by saying, remember our rule for entering the classroom quietly, like a lot of teachers would do, that's still not getting to the root. And so there's a better way. And so what is the better way?
Well, one of the biggest things is to stay calm.
Yeah.
And I always say that I always knew that my principal was really upset when she would clasp her hands and she talked in a really low voice.
Right.
Because it was a strategy like to not get yourself worked up, right? And so as a teacher, we have to practice that because it is an emotionally draining job.
It is. It is. And this is something that's not natural. This strategy that we're talking about today does not come naturally. You have to, and I'll give an example later of when I use the strategy successfully. And it does work, but you have to train yourself. You have to remind yourself, like in the moment, okay, I'm going to remember what Greg and Jessica talked about on the podcast now, and I'm going to try this out. But the first step is, like Jessica said, take a deep breath and remain calm.
That's right. And then next, you want to acknowledge whatever emotion they're feeling. Now, it's important to think about, you might think that it's a dumb thing to be feeling about whatever, like, why are you so upset that we're writing speeches today, right? You know, it might seem stupid to you. But in The Secret Weapon, she talks about acknowledging their emotions. So saying, like, I can see that you are really angry right now, or I can see that you are frustrated. There's some things that we've already kind of alluded to some things that you should avoid, but, you know, try to avoid saying things that would embarrass them in front of their peers, like, you know, suck it up, buttercup, or, you know, why are you being a crybaby, or things like that. So, acknowledging the emotion, staying calm.
And then the biggest thing that you can do is to react with curiosity. And so there are a lot of different things that you can say in that moment, and we'll keep using the example of the kid who hates speeches. I hate speeches. To remain calm and say, what do you hate about speeches, Leroy? Why do you hate speeches?
Right.
You know, and it's possible that they might say something that gives you some insight into something that will help them, or a way that you can adjust things for them. But the reacting with curiosity, she's got the emotions. You name the emotion, you validate how they're feeling, is what Donna calls it. We validate. We don't dismiss the way they're feeling, even if it's not rational.
Right, and she says, don't react with sympathy, react with empathy. So try, even though you think it's maybe not the best thing to be feeling, or it's crazy that they're feeling that way, try to put yourself in their shoes.
So what do you not like about speeches is that's the powerful way to respond. And of course, I would probably do that if there were other kids around. I might do that kind of discreetly, as you mentioned, with lowering the voice, because we don't know how it's going to go. Right.
I was going to mention that. I think it's best to talk to them about why, like, whatever they're feeling and why, in a private, like, even if you could call them out to the hallway, or like to your desk for a minute, or like you said, just bend down and talk in a low voice where others can't hear, because if you ask them, they're probably not going to give you the real answer in front of their peers. And
they might not give you the real answer anyway, but it's a strategy. That's right. It's not going to work every time, but it's just something that you can add to your arsenal of strategies that you can try. And then, so after, let's say that they say something that warrants a consequence, or their initial outburst was something that warrants a consequence. What does this strategy prescribe, Jessica?
So it says that it's okay to wait. Right. So you don't have to give a consequence right then and there. And I think as a parent, that's something that's a little different, because I always thought I had to do it right then, or they wouldn't know what the consequence was for. But she says, you know, just tell them, like, we're gonna talk about this together, and we're gonna figure this out, but I need a minute to think about what the consequence is gonna be. Because you might not always know the appropriate consequence in that moment, or you might try to give a consequence that's really unrealistic, or you can't follow through with, right?
Yeah, I used to be the king of dishing out consequences when I was upset, which is, we've learned since then that you want to make sure that the consequence matches the offense and not your current mood.
That's right.
Because when you start saying things like silent lunch until Easter and it's Halloween,
right,
you're not going to be able to follow through with that, and then you're gonna compromise your integrity is compromised. Just say, oh, he doesn't mean it. He just throws out threats and doesn't follow through, and that's really bad. So there's nothing wrong with saying, hey, we'll talk about this later.
Absolutely.
Like,
And one of the things that she mentions in the tips is that, this also relieves the stress for you to have to think that you know how to handle all the situations, right? Like, we might be fearful that there's a child that can do something that we don't know how to handle. And so she says this gives you time to think about it. And also she mentions, and Greg, I wanted to show him this. She mentions this book. We love this book. It's called You Can Handle Them All. And we'll link this also in the show notes. But she says you can come to this, find the behavior of the child, and come up with an appropriate plan.
Yep, and it gives you like research-based strategies, and it also tells you what not to do. That's what I love about this book is it's like, never do this. And a lot of the never do's are things that people are doing left and right all over. So that You Can Handle Them All book. There should be a copy in the library at your school. And if there's not, then just reach out to your recruitment and retention coordinator if you work for Harnett County Schools, and we will get you a copy that you can use. But that it's much better to think about consequences when you're calm.
Yeah.
So if you're upset because they disrupted class or they said something that hurt your feelings, which we should not take things personally with kids. It is hard. That's something that you're going to have to grow into over time. It comes easier for some than others, but we don't take it personally. We just got to remember that kids are changing, and especially if you work with middle school kids. There's a lot of middle school kids that they don't like themselves for whatever reason because they're going through
it's a hard time.
This stormy period of their life, and so they're going to take it out on anybody. Don't take it personal. It's not you. It's just your position. If you want to divorce the two, like it's not me, it's my position. Whatever you got to do, but. Just like I don't recommend responding to an angry email instantly.
Right.
We always say if you get a nasty gram email, sleep on it, respond to it. You want to calm down before you deliver the consequence.
And too, you can talk to your mentor or a leader in your building, like in that instance with the email, that you can have them read it or say, hey, this is what happened. This is what I'm thinking about for the consequence.
Yeah. Or you might decide to show them grace and just have like a little talk with them. Let them off the hook depending on what it was. I mean, we can't do that all the time, every day, but sometimes I think, like, especially if a kid is trying to do better and they have like impulse control issues or whatever, and you can see they're really trying. I used to show grace from time to time, just to encourage them and keep them encouraged.
For sure. And on that note, kind of another thing I love about the book is it gives you reasons why they might be exhibiting that behavior. And sometimes it's things that you didn't even think about. And so we don't really know. We can't get inside of their head. But it's a good way for us to really think about what their need is and why they're exhibiting that behavior.
I'd love to tell a quick story about how I tried this strategy out and it was successful. I was so happy when I tried it with success. And I don't teach every day, but I was doing a model lesson in a 7th grade classroom shortly after Donna started teaching this. And it was out of control. I mean, off the chain, as we say, hanging from the chandeliers. It was wide open, and this was a teacher that was brand new, and they didn't go to school for education and stuff. And so I went in there and I tried to get the class started, and one little boy especially was just being so like, no, I'm not going to let you take control of class. He was in control, and this, that, and the other. And I don't like having to do this, and I would not have had to have done this if it was my own class, because I would have had a relationship with those kids. It's very hard to direct kids that you don't have a connection with. So that's why the model lessons can be challenging for us sometimes. But I did have to ask the teacher quietly, is there somewhere that we can send him with something to do? And so I sacrificed one for the good of the group, which is you can't do that every day. Some people don't like it, but I wanted to model the strategies for the teacher. And so she gave me some work for him to do, and we sent him to another teacher across the hall or something. And then the class was neutralized, and it was the kids could see that, I was going to have school one way or another. But I got class, started doing class, and almost everybody in the class was cooperating. And finally, this little girl yelled out across the room, "You're mean!" or something like that. And there was a time in my life when I would have said, "That's Mr. Mean to you. Now get back to work."
It's not funny.
You know what I'm saying? or I don't care, or you ain't seen nothing yet. There's a lot of ways, a lot of natural reflexive ways, but I didn't. I just kind of let it go. I ignored it for a minute. as I kind of moved around the room, I think I was distributing handouts or something. I got up to her and I kind of leaned in and I said, "Now, why do you think I'm mean?" And she said something, because you sent Bob out, or whatever the little boy's name was at the beginning or whatever. And I can't remember what I said after that, but we were able to have a calm dialogue back and forth, and then she just kind of got to work and it kind of faded off. It didn't turn into a big classroom disrupting scene for every kid in the room to put their eyes upon, And then later on, about a week later, when I saw her in the hallway, she said, "Hey, Mr. Mean," but it was very playful.
Right.
You
and
see?
That's the cool thing about having your own class, is building those relationships, and it really doesn't take long, and then you can have those meaningful conversations.
And there's other times since then where I've managed to think, okay, I'm supposed to react with curiosity. I'm not supposed to, counterattack.
This could be helpful in our personal lives.
It could. It really could.
Yes.
If you're in a little tiff with your significant other,
or somebody at work, or
yes.
Because again, 9 times out of 10, it's not normally about you. It's something that's going on with them. So
yeah, I will say one thing too. I know I've talked a lot in this episode. I'm sorry, Jessica.
No, you're good.
About naming the emotion. You want to be kind of careful with that especially with middle school kids. If you start saying, "Well, I can see that this is making you afraid," I ain't afraid of nothing. So you want to make sure that if you're trying to validate how they're feeling, that you present something that they're likely to agree with.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Or frustrated. Yeah. I love this quote at the bottom. I just wanted to share it with everybody. Sure. It says, "Our ability to manage a child effectively is very much an outcome of our capacity to manage ourselves."
Ouch.
So sit with that for a minute.
I need some steel-toe boots. You just stepped on my toes. It is really important that we manage our emotions. And this is not a self-care episode, but if you're struggling with keeping it together in class or staying patient with the kids, you might want to reach out to find somebody to talk to about it. We're here to help. If you work for Harnett County Schools, by all means, reach out to us, and we can coach you through that a little bit. It is hard.
It's a hard craft, and takes time to develop, and I don't think you ever really truly get there, but we hope this was helpful for you guys today. So with that next kid that's making you want to pull your hair out, try some of these strategies, and remember you can find them online, and don't forget about this book that you probably have a copy of in your school. It's super helpful. So yeah, thanks for listening in today.
Yes.
We'll see you next time.
All right.